fast, so I get no trouble. Let's see. Let's check out the fat electrician. Come on, where's the other one? What the heck? Is he running out of shit to make? Welcome, we're gonna start doing something here in a second. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. Let's go from the end. These are all old ones. Jeez. Where did all the war stuff go? Maybe I'm wrong one. Oh, there we go.
Bring together PKI with the management of your cryptographic assets with a secure root of trust via
favorite military movies of all time. However, there is one glaring problem with this film, and that is the fact that they left out the man that is arguably the most important guy of the entire battle. Now, to be fair, they do kind of reference him at the very end of the movie. In the credits, when they're talking about legendary pilot Dick Best, they say that Dick Best is one of only 2 pilots in U.S. naval history to score direct hits on 2 separate enemy carriers in the same day. Well, this is the other guy. Today we're talking about Norman Jack Cleese, aka Dusty. In my opinion, he is the most important man at the Battle of Midway, which obviously is going to be a very controversial, disputable take, but here's the criteria that I'm using to judge that. You see, when you talk about an enormous battle like Midway, there's a lot going on. There's a ton of very important people. You have brilliant leaders like Admiral Nimitz. Maybe he's the most important guy. You have brilliant intelligence officers and code crackers that cracked the Japanese code, gathered the intelligence to know when, where, and how to attack the Japanese. Maybe they're the most important. But when you ask me who's most important, it's the men that are on the ground, or rather in the planes, doing the work. Because when push comes to shove, you can have the best leadership, the best code cracking, the best intelligence, and the best battle plan on the face of the planet. But if you don't have the men to go in there and execute and get the job done, it's all worthless. So with that criteria in mind, the question becomes, out of the thousands of men that went into the Battle of Midway, who is the one man out of all of them that put in the most work? Who took the fight to the enemy the hardest? And that man is unarguably, undisputably, Dusty Cleese, and we're going to get into it right after word from our sponsor.
Delete me!
Okay, all right. You've got a gun and you've got 2 Battle Electrician Championship belts. Perfect. Showing off your Christmas presents? Yeah. Showing off the camera. See, you guys think I'm using this to write off my kids' Christmas presents. I'm not. That would be tacky. I'm actually hiring my children as child handlers, writing off their salaries.
What?
I'll explain that.
That's a little stiff.
All right, you guys know the deal. Delete me. Online subscription model. You give them money every month. They turn around and make sure that data brokers on the internet aren't selling your personal information. What does this actually do in practice? It gets rid of a bunch of robocalls and spam emails. And on top of that, your personal info isn't just floating around the internet for anybody to be able to buy for a couple of bucks.
There's a nice layer.
Because I thought the same thing. I don't want to give delete me all my personal information either. I'm trying to get my personal information off the internet. Why would I give it to an internet company? You don't really have to give me your personal information. It's honestly kind of creepy. I I gave them my name and my email address, and that was it. They came back to me a couple days later and was like, is this your address or one of your previous addresses? It was. Is this your mom's full name? Uh-huh. Is that your dad's full name? Uh-huh. Are you related to this person? Did you go to this high school? They knew everything about me and knew exactly who I was just by me giving them my name and my email. All I had to do was answer a couple of yes or no questions as to whether or not that was in fact me, which it was, at which point they're like, cool, go ahead, pay for our subscription service. We'll go to all the data brokers where we found this information and force them to delete it. And as long as you keep being a paying member, they will continue to monitor all these data brokers for your personal information. And if these data brokers do acquire it again, they will force them to delete it again. Not only does this mean your personal information isn't floating around on the internet, it also means you're going to get less telemarketer phone calls, you're going to get less spam emails. In my opinion, it's definitely worth it. I've been using them since before they were paying me to talk about them, and I'm going to keep using them after they quit paying me to talk about them. If you want to give it a try, I'll have a link and a discount code down below. Let's get back to the video. All right, our story begins on March 7th, 1916 in Coffeyville, Kansas, when Norman Jack Kleiss is born. He is the youngest of 3 siblings, raised in a very religious household, and from a very young age, he is extremely
I'm lazy. I don't like
kind
to
of a
shovel.
troublemaker. At the age of 4, he decides he does not like his first name Norman and decides to just rename himself Jack using only his middle name. Adults would literally come up to this 4-year-old and be like, how's little Norman doing? And he'd be like, my name's Jack. At 5 years old, he wanted to know where his dad went off to work every day, so after his dad left for work, he decided he was just gonna follow the car into town, walked into town, crossing multiple railroad tracks, multiple intersections, pretty dangerous endeavor for a 5-year-old, and then just wanders into his dad's work like 2 hours later. Dad's pissed off, takes him back home, ties him to a tree. Apparently that was appropriate back then. It was a different time. To be fair, you gotta keep the kid safe somehow. I guess the tree is now his babysitter. Whatever. Unlike most World War II heroes we cover on the channel, I don't believe that Jack grew up in extreme poverty like everybody else. I believe that because, well, he had a house cleaner at a young age. That is, until he got the house cleaner fired. At the age of 5 years old, somebody came to the house to clean out their cistern, basically this big water tank connected to like the gutters on the house so they could collect rainwater, and he was there to, you know, clean it all out and do whatever, and he left the tank open and went off for lunch, and 5-year-old Jack decided it'd be pretty cool if I went and took all my family's silverware, like back in the 1920s when silverware was still made out of silver and extremely expensive, and then go and drop it one piece at a time into the water tank just to watch them go kerplunk. So when the family comes home and sees that their silverware set is missing, they naturally assume that the house cleaner stole it and she gets fired. He did say he felt bad about that later on in life once he was old enough to actually understand what he had done. Regardless, he goes off to school. While he's there, he's always pranking teachers, and he's known for being very good at playing tag. Now when I say tag, I don't mean what you and I associate as tag, like run around and tag somebody, say, hi, you're it, and then run away. No, apparently in 1920s in Coffeyville, Kansas, tag meant that you went into the garage, got your dad's World War I artillery casing and a tennis ball, and then put a firecracker in the casing, put the tennis ball on top, and then shot it at your friends. Like I said, it was a different time. In his own words, and I quote, people didn't worry much about kids in those days. You either lived or you didn't.
Somehow they all managed to live, so what do you do? Gentle, be gentle. Try not to rip the fucking plastic bag that I'm. Oh, I did a little rip in the top there. See? You gotta be gentle. Fucking nice. It does.
Speaking of which, he got his first job at 8 years old, hauling cans of paint up scaffolding for painters at a construction site. Then at the age of 12, his mother gets diagnosed with stomach cancer, and Dad doesn't have any options. He has to break
Welcome,
up the
everybody.
family for a little
Thanks
bit.
for watching.
He sends Jack and his
Hit
brother
that
and
like
sister
button.
to go live with their uncle, and he has to take
Some
his wife
winter
off to
farming
Baltimore,
here.
Maryland, to basically live at Johns Hopkins Hospital. They live with their uncle for about a year until, unfortunately, his mother passes away when he's 13 years old and Dad comes back home. During that time he lived with his uncle, however, Jack would often go to work with his uncle, who was a surgeon, and watch him do surgeries. And during that time, he decides that's what he wants to do with the rest of his life. He wants to go be a surgeon just like his uncle. So Jack goes back home, living with his dad, living with his siblings. Obviously, his dad is now a single parent. He's never really had a close eye on him his entire life, and it's going to be even less so now, A, because he's older, and B, because Dad's a single parent, he's probably working. Because of this, at the age of 15 years old, he gets bored and decides that he's going to go join the Kansas National Guard, lying about his age so he can get in early. Obviously, it ends up working. He becomes a Cav Scout at the age of 15 years old, and this is like back in the 1920s, 1930s, when they're still actually riding horses around and shit. His horse's name was Jeff, and he trained it to bite people on the ass if they wouldn't make eye contact with him. While in the National Guard, he has like the aha light bulb moment that changes the trajectory of his entire life. They're out there doing this field op, you know, a training exercise. He's out there with Jeff and all the other Cav Scouts, and while they're doing this military exercise, an enemy biplane flies over all these horses, and then the referee comes out and is like, "You're all dead." To which Jack is like, what the fuck you mean we're all dead? The plane just flew over. Like, they spotted us, yeah, but we're not dead. And they're like, no. In real life, that thing would have had machine guns and it would have mowed all of you down. Hearing this, he's like, okay, that's fucking awesome. I gotta trade Jeff in and get me a plane, because clearly planes are the future of warfare.
Sorry, Thunder. I gotta put you down. How's your leg, huh? How's your leg? You ready to race?
So at that point, he decides if he's going to be in the military, he wants to be a pilot. From here, he goes on, finishes high school. After high school, he applies to go to the U.S. Naval Academy, Annapolis, which at this point in time, America's not at war. It's a lot harder to get into the military in general, and it's especially a lot harder to get into an actual academy like West Point or Annapolis. Despite that, he did do pretty well in high school, so he ends up getting the 4th alternate slot, meaning he's definitely not getting a shot to go the year after high school. If he waits a year, he might be able to get in. And that's just a maybe, so he goes and applies for college. If he can't be a pilot, he might as well be a doctor. That's been his plan his whole life. So he applies to go to Kansas University. He gets accepted, but he's going to need a pretty big scholarship to be able to pay for it. So he tries out for this big scholarship that'll give him a full ride. He has to go in, does all this testing, passes all the tests, and he makes it to the interview portion for this scholarship. So he's in this interview, it's going great, and then they hit him with what he sees as the trick question. They ask him, do you believe in evolution?
You son of a gun.
And you gotta remember, this is the early 1900s. The country is still much more religious than it is today. A lot of people reject evolution because they see that as, you know, going against what the Bible says how everything was created. And he grew up in an extremely religious Methodist household, so obviously he probably doesn't believe in evolution. So he kind of interprets this as a trick question that they're using to weed out all the religious country people from Kansas, and he gives the perfect answer in response. I'm paraphrasing, but it was essentially like, well, I guess I don't really know, but I'm really hoping that after going to Kansas University for 4 years and studying really hard, that I'll know the right answer for sure. Just totally finesses the interviewer, winds up winning the scholarship. About a week later, the college contacts him and was like, hey, we found out that you have a pending slot at Annapolis to go to the Naval Academy. You can't have the scholarship and a pending spot at Annapolis. You got to pick one or the other. Which kind of sucks, because Annapolis is just a maybe and the scholarship is a sure thing, and now he has this big decision to make. He winds up deciding that he's going to risk it, and he's going to try to get into Annapolis. He's going to be in there waiting for a year, and hopefully a slot opens up. So while he's waiting for that year, he gets a job with Oil Country Specialties, a local company that builds oil rigs. And while there, by sheer chance, he gets his first opportunity to fly in an airplane, because the owner of this company is really good buddies with the Inman brothers that run the Flying Circus. And the Inman brothers Flying Circus is a big deal at this point in time, because one, airplanes are fairly new. Everybody wants to go see an airplane for the first time. And also, I believe they're the only flying circus that thought it would be a good idea to take their pet lion up in the fucking plane with them. Which is just the most American shit ever. Like, oh, the Wright brothers figured out how to fly, and now if you have enough money, you can just buy a plane and fly it around. That's a brilliant idea. You know what else would be cool? If we went to a different continent, picked up the deadliest land predator they have, and took it up in the plane with us for funsies. What could go wrong? Regardless, he gets to go up on a couple of flights, absolutely loves it. He is now convinced that he made the right decision by going to Annapolis. A year goes by, he winds up getting a slot that year, and then he ships off to Annapolis to start his training.
Less bumpy for me now.
Circuit breakers, bus plugs, transformers, and more. Rely on RS Breakers and Controls as your premier supplier. We offer products from all major manufacturers.
During his 4 years at Annapolis, he gets sent out into the fleet to get some real-world hands-on experience, and he gets attached to the USS Arkansas as they make their way over to Europe on a training exercise. And while he's there, he gets placed in charge of one of the turrets. So he goes, he learns everything about targeting for these turrets, and then his crew inside the turret, he has to get them trained up because they're going to have a competition, and he wants his crew to qualify as expert on firing these big guns. And to convince his men to train extra and extra hard, he comes up with a creative way to motivate them. While off the coast of Norway, he finds a nude beach, and he then proceeds to use that for targeting practice. Obviously not firing ammunition at the nude beach, but just like, hey, do you identify the target? Okay, give me those coordinates. And then the crew runs their drill and simulates firing around. So they're like miles off the coastline. The people on the nude beach, it's like there's no way that ship can see me, but they're sitting there with these super high-powered binoculars, and Jack is talking to his crew like, okay, all right, you see the blonde? The one with the huge tits that's topless? Yeah, that one. Okay, go ahead and target her.
I just try to stay awake. It's just so boring.
Needless to say, crew, very motivated to train. They end up going into this competition. They qualify as expert and get to paint a big white E on the side of their turret. So that goes great. From here, he goes back to Annapolis, finishes his coursework, graduates, then gets sent out to California, and he becomes the turret officer on a cruiser. Surprise, surprise, they qualify as expert again.
Boobs!
Boobs, Ozzy.
These filmmakers are just boobs.
While being stationed in California, he meets a young girl. Her name is Eunice. He thinks she's the most beautiful woman in the world. So he goes, he's trying to date this girl. He's, this is back in the day. You had to court her appropriately. You had to go meet the parents. You had to do the whole 9 yards. You couldn't just hop on Tinder. So the first time he goes to meet the parents, and the mom is just super blunt. He asks their permission to take her out on a date. And she's like, yeah, you can, but you're going to have to schedule it ahead of time because she has a lot of other suitors that are taking her out on dates at this point in time. So this is now a competition, and he's competitive. Over the course of the next year, he wins. He winds up being the main guy. He asks the parents permission to go buy a ring. He goes, buys the engagement ring. Hasn't proposed yet, but he decides, you know what? It'd be cool. Eunice should just change her name. He just literally renames this woman. He's like, oh, by the way, your name is Jean now. And she's like, oh, okay, and just goes by the name Jean for the rest of her life. And he's like, I mean, I don't see what the problem is. I renamed myself when I was 4. I'm going to rename you too, I guess. So he tells his dad he's going to propose to Jean. Dad is super pissed because Jean is super Catholic and they are Methodist, which apparently is a big issue back then, and Dad is hardcore against him marrying a Catholic. He needs to marry another Methodist. So this kind of gives him cold feet. He doesn't propose, and then Germany invades Poland and World War II kicks off. So before he can make a decision, he is basically told to board his ship, and they ship off on patrols. Jean tells him that she loves him and she's going to wait for him. That's great. He's off patrolling the ocean. While that's going on, he's writing letters back home to Jean, trying to figure out if they can make their relationship work due to religious differences. And then he gets the opportunity to go to flight school. He tells Jean about it. Jean doesn't really want him to go because it's dangerous, and then he won't be stationed in California, so he won't be able to see her as much. So he doesn't know what to do. He's sitting in his rack one day just looking at a picture of Jean, and one of his buddies comes in and is like, will you just fucking propose to that girl? You're sitting there on your bunk looking at her picture every single day. You love her. Just go propose to her. In fact, I'll tell you what, if you man up and propose to her, I will give you the officer's saber that has been a family heirloom of mine that's from the USS Philadelphia. Like the American gunship that was captured by the Barbary pirates during the Barbary Wars. It was kind of the instigator that created the entire US Navy. Yeah, that USS Philadelphia. So with that, he proposes. Jean accepts on one condition. She can remain Catholic and she can raise the kids as Catholic, to which he's like, no, absolutely not, and then goes to flight school. So from here, he ships off to Pensacola, goes to flight school, passes. Then he has to go to an additional flight school so that he can be a carrier-based pilot and learn how to land on aircraft carriers, because that's an entirely different ball of wax. They got to learn how to not only land on them during the day, but land on them during the night, which he equates to something along the lines of jumping onto a moving skateboard with your eyes shut. So he goes, he passes that, and then he gets stationed on the USS Enterprise as a pilot, where he is basically voluntold, you're a dive bomber now. They didn't ask him hey, do you want to be a dive bomber, a torpedo bomber, a fighter pilot? No, they didn't ask him shit. They're just like, hey, you're a dive bomber, the end. Which is kind of crazy because I'm going to be honest, being a dive bomber is probably something that you should have to volunteer for. First of all, the entire concept and strategy of dive bombing is only a couple of years old. It was just pioneered by Claire Chennault and the Flying Tigers over in China a couple years prior to this. And the concept as a whole is nuts. Basically, you're going to go in and you're going to dive on an enemy battleship that's covered in AA guns while they're shooting flak at you, hope you don't get hit, then drop a bomb right on their deck deck and pull up, pulling like 9 Gs, hope you don't black out, and then hope they don't shoot you down on the way out. It's basically the aerial equivalent of just bum rushing an enemy machine gun nest. It's insane. And then to make things worse, they don't even get the credit they deserve, right? If a fighter ace shoots down 5 enemies, he becomes a fighter ace. There is no bomber ace for dive bombers, right? I feel like if you successfully plant a 500-pound bomb on the deck of 5 enemy ships, you should become a bomber ace, but that's just not a thing. Regardless, that's what he's doing. So he shows up to the USS Enterprise, and when he first gets there, he's the new guy, and, you know, everybody's kind of concerned about the quality of the new pilots coming out of training. So what they do initially is they make them just go up, do a couple of laps around the Enterprise, and then land, making sure they can land on a carrier safely. And because they're testing the pilot's ability to land on the carrier and not die, they obviously don't send them up with a gunner because, well, if the pilot's going to crash and die, there's no point in the gunner dying too, so they just throw some sandbags in the gunner's seat and let him practice. So Jack's very first time, he's getting ready to go up and show that he can land on this aircraft carrier. One of these rear gunners comes up to him. His name's Bruno Guido, and he's like, "Hey, you need me to hop in the back for you to do this?" And he's like, well, no, I'm supposed to throw sandbags in the back because they want to make sure I can land and, you know, not die. You don't have to go with. It's risky. I can mess this up. And Bruno Guido's like, you're a pilot. It'll be fine. So Bruno goes up with them on all 6 of his trial runs, just being an absolute bro about the entire thing. From here, he goes into specific training for actual dive bombing tactics, practice runs, yada, yada, yada. One day he's doing a practice run, and after the practice run, he decides he doesn't want to go land back at where he took off from. He wants to land at a different field and just, you know, get lunch somewhere else for once. As he approaches the field, the tower gives him the green light, or he thinks the tower gives him the green light, giving him permission to land. He goes to land while there's 2 Marine planes taxiing down the airstrip, and they're trying to take off. Obviously, he has misinterpreted the situation. He was not given permission to land. He makes a split-second decision. He's a carrier pilot. He's good at landing in a very short amount of distance, so he takes his plane down, lands super short, not even using half the airstrip, and then turns off to the left into what he thinks is a bunch of red clay on the side of this airstrip. And it's not red clay. It's about 6 inches of very, very fine powdered dust, and the afterwash of his plane blows that shit absolutely everywhere.
I love the sand wall trip. Beautiful. Bastard.
Within a matter of seconds, the entire airfield has to shut down because there's so much dust. It looks like a mushroom cloud after a nuclear explosion. Nobody can see fucking anything. Then he hears over the radio, "Unknown dust cloud, who the hell are you?" Like, oh shit, he's in trouble. He turns it around, gets on the airstrip, and then just takes back off, hoping nobody spots him. Makes a 20-minute trip back to the Enterprise, thinking, okay, cool, got away with it. Nobody knows that was me. Everything's going great. Lands on the Enterprise. Crew chief comes up to him. "How's it going, Dusty?" And from that point on, he was no longer Jack Cleese. He was Dusty Cleese. Dusty doesn't really care for the new nickname, but hey, is what it is. It could definitely be worse.
By the way, my name's Dick.
Dick what?
What if every site photo moved your job forward? I use company cam to take photos in the field instead of getting lost in my phone. Just Dick.
From here, he goes through a bunch of different training operations, taking up different rear gunners with him all the time.
Well, thanks for watching, everybody. Here in Hinds Creek, Alberta. Got trucks coming in a few hours, so I got some time just getting the snow off the top of the bag here, so no one has to shovel. He's trained up on dive bombing. He's got the best rear gunner in the Navy. America's not at war yet, but if they do go to war, he's going to be ready. Now, because it's looking more and more like America is going to get involved in World War II, the government's trying to get, you know, a bunch of propaganda. They want footage. They want stuff to be able to show people, to get them to enlist in the military. They want to be able to sell war bonds. They want to start getting all this stuff ready. So on September 1st, 1941, they send a Hollywood production team out to America's flagship, the USS Enterprise. And they want to get mock footage of American Dauntless dive bombers doing a dive, and then one of them gets shot down and burns into flames. But obviously we're not going to shoot down an actual plane, so we need to simulate somebody getting shot down and somehow make it look like it's smoking and burning as it spirals out of control. So they take these canisters of acid and mount them where the wing bombs normally would be, and they rig them up so that the pilot can flip a switch and it opens up the canisters, and that's going to like catch in the air and disperse, and it's going to look like smoke from a fire as this plane is simulating spiraling out of control. And the guy with the acid on his plane is going to be Dusty's squad leader, in theory the most experienced pilot, a guy by the name of Dickinson, and he's supposed to dive away from the formation and in the dive release the acid so it all flies behind him and doesn't hit any of the other planes. Well, when Dusty goes up with him,
he decides that he's going to release the acid while he's still in the formation before he dives. Dusty, who's on his wing, gets his entire plane covered in acid, immediately fogs up the entire windshield. He can't see fucking shit. Then it gets inside the cab, fogs up and cracks his goggles, gets in his eyes, and it's burning his face and hands as he's trying to fly this plane. 1 second, he's flying along, everything's going according to plan. The next second, his entire face is on fire and he can't fucking see anything, so he dives down trying to get out of this cloud of acid, and then eventually wipes his eyes free and pulls up, and he still can't see anything because the windshield's still fogged up. So he's leveled off, he's going straight, can't see where he's going, so he pokes his head outside of the cabin and sees that he leveled off 50 feet above the ocean. He was that close to dying. He then somehow manages to get back and land this plane. As soon as he gets there, the ground crew's there spraying off the plane with hoses. The acid had eaten the paint off the plane. They're spraying him with the hose. He gets rushed off to the hospital and he stays there for the next 9 days getting treated for burns. Now, on one hand, that fucking sucks. On the other hand, Dusty Kleiss now has bad eyesight, which means he is definitely the main character. So Dusty recovers in the hospital, gets recovered, gets cleared to fly again, and then on November 28th, 1941, he boards the USS Enterprise, and they are escorting some Marines out to Wake Island, except everything this time is fucking weird. Admiral Halsey, the guy in command of the USS Enterprise, and all the high-ranking officers are being weirdly serious about everything. They're going out, they're conducting real patrols, actually looking for enemies. They have standing orders that if they see a Japanese submarine, they are to sink it immediately, which is weird because we're not at war with Japan yet. So something's going on, but Dusty doesn't really know what. Maybe they're just like getting ready for war, and this is all training. He really has no idea. So they go, they make it out to Wake Island, they drop off the Marines, and they start heading back. They're supposed to be at Pearl Harbor on December 6th. On the way back, they hit some inclement weather, they get delayed. Now they're not going to make it until December 8th, 1941. So the morning of December 7th, the USS Enterprise is about 215 nautical miles away from Pearl Harbor, and because they're getting close, they are now within range of the planes, so they send 18 planes out on a scouting mission just for practice to go around Hawaii, and then they're going to land on Ford Island and wait for the Enterprise to show up. Dusty is not one of those 18 planes because he's been flying missions for the past 2 days straight, so he's held back in reserve just in case anything happens, which it won't because we're not at war with anybody. About an hour and a half later, like 7:45 in the morning on December 7th, a bunch of broken radio transmissions start coming in on the USS Enterprise, and Dusty is in the control tower hearing all of it. Just messages coming in from different pilots that don't make any sense, hearing things like, "This is an American aircraft, please don't shoot," or "That motherfucker's actually shooting real bullets at us. Start shooting back." Dusty has no idea what's going on, and neither does anybody else. The scouting patrol ran into the Japanese formation on its way to attack Pearl Harbor. 5 of the 18 USS Enterprise planes wind up getting shot down in this attack, but nobody knows that yet. As far as Dusty knows, all 18 of them are still MIA. The entire Enterprise is scrambling. They're trying to get more planes ready to get them off the ship. Dusty runs out on the deck. He's still thinking in the back of his head, this might just be some elaborate training exercise. The USS Enterprise is hoisting its battle flag as the loudspeakers come on and announce that we are now at war with Japan. Dusty is in the air by 9:30 a.m. leading a 6-plane formation with a bunch of other planes from the USS Enterprise as they are just doing hot laps around the Enterprise and its task force, getting ready for them to get attacked too. After an hour and a half of scouting and patrolling the area, they don't see absolutely anything. And in the back of Dusty's head, he's still thinking maybe this is just some elaborate exercise, but as he comes back to the USS Enterprise and lands, he sees that she's flying her battle ensign, which is something that you don't do for a training exercise, and he realizes that this is for real. Later that day at dusk, they send Dusty and the rest of the planes in the USS Enterprise up on another mission. They are going to try to track down the Japanese fleet and return the favor for what they just did at Pearl Harbor. Unfortunately, they were given a bad heading and weren't able to locate the Japanese fleet. Next morning, December 8th, it's the day after Pearl Harbor. Everything's fucking chaos. Nobody knows what's going on. That night, the maintenance crews are like all hands on deck. They're repairing every single plane they can and getting them as flight ready as possible and trying to get every plane in the air that they possibly can. Whether they should be in the air or not isn't really the question. It's, will the motherfucker fly? And if the answer is yes, it's going up. So they cobble together this beat up Dauntless dive bomber and they fuck up the paint job and they accidentally label it SB-18. Well, there's already an SB-18. So now there's 2 SB-18s, and that's the one that Dusty's supposed to be going up in. Dusty realizes this, but everything's so chaotic, he doesn't want to like cause issues and send it back. So he's just like, it's fine, I'll just go up on the scouting mission. The motherfucker will fly. Everything's going to work out. So he goes up with one wingman doing this scouting mission, just defending the Enterprise, seeing if he can spot spot any Japanese ships. Once him and his wingman get up in the air, none of his gauges are working, his radio isn't working, he can't get a hold of the other pilot, and they're going along, and eventually the pilot just peels off and disappears into the clouds. And like I said, Dusty doesn't have a radio. He has no idea where the fuck he went, so he figures, okay, that guy probably got a radio message from the Enterprise to make its way back. So he starts trying to make his way back, but he's completely lost contact with this other plane. Once he gets back to where the Enterprise was when he took off, it's no longer there. And like I said, it's overcast, so he can't get enough altitude to see out far enough to be able to spot this plane, so he's flying low above the water, and he has to start conducting a grid search looking for the USS Enterprise, hoping he can find it before he runs out of fuel. Because he realizes if he runs out of fuel, there's a chance that nobody's ever going to come looking for him until it's too late, because there's already an SB-18 on the deck. So if they go and they take a roll call and they're like, yeah, SB-18 went out this morning, hey, SB-18's on the deck right now, he must be back somewhere, nobody's coming to save his ass. He's looking for the USS Enterprise for like 2 hours straight. He's about to run out of fuel, and as he's approaching, he sees this little gap in the cloud cover, and right through this gap, he sees the USS Enterprise right in the center of it. He immediately dives, going straight through this gap in the clouds, headed straight towards the Enterprise, and as he's approaching, he sees, oh shit, the task force is under attack, because he sees the destroyers firing their anti-aircraft guns. And as he gets closer, he realizes, oh shit, they're firing anti-aircraft guns at me, because, well, he's diving on the USS Enterprise and there's already an SB-18 on the deck. Maybe this is a captured plane by the Japanese. Nobody has any idea. Regardless, they're now shooting at him. Thankfully, they miss, most likely plot armor, because you can't kill the main character. They realize it's an American plane, and he's able to safely land back on the USS Enterprise. As soon as he lands, he is informed Admiral Halsey wants to talk to you. To which Dusty's like, fuck, my career's over. So he goes to Halsey's office, explains everything that happened, and Halsey just goes, okay, you're dismissed. He leaves thinking like he's going to get new orders to go back. He's going to be grounded. His flight career's over. The end. It turns out Halsey liked what he did and recommended him for a promotion. From here, the Enterprise makes it back to Pearl Harbor on December 8th, and everybody sees the aftermath of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Everybody's pissed. Nobody knows what to do. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. And honestly, there's not a lot America can do, because most of its naval fleet has just been crippled. But Admiral Nimitz and the rest of the American chain of command decides that they have to do something. They have to hit back against the Empire of Japan. They can't just let them attack Pearl Harbor and get away with it. They have to do something, even if it's not a lot, at which point they send the Enterprise out to the Marshall Islands, where there's a Japanese base. So the USS Enterprise arrives within striking distance of the Marshall Islands at night on February 1st, 1942, when they launch their attack, and Dusty and his guys are going to be launching their attack on a smaller cluster of islands known as the Kwajalein Atoll. So they take off in their dauntless dive bombers under the cover of night, trying to time this perfectly so they arrive right at dawn. That way they can launch their attack, surprise them, and dip out. Unfortunately, the weather center on the USS Enterprise failed to identify a strong tailwind, and they wind up arriving 15 minutes early and have to circle around the island, giving the enemy tons of time to scramble enemy fighter planes and prepare for the attack. By the time it's bright enough to launch their attack, the enemy fighter planes are already up in the air. They're starting to approach them. They enter their dive. They're getting shot at by enemy fighter planes from behind them on their dive as they're taking a ton of anti-aircraft fire coming in. Despite that, Dusty doesn't take any damage and manages to drop both of his 100-pound wing bombs on top of an enemy plane that's on the ground. He pulls out of his dive, pulling almost 9 Gs, almost blacking out. He still has the wherewithal to strafe the enemy with his 50 caliber machine guns, and as that's going on, the enemy fighters behind them manage to shoot down one of his wingmen. And now that same fighter is coming for Dusty and John Snowden in the back seat. Dusty acts fast, pulls an evasive maneuver, lining it up perfectly so John Snowden can get a good shot off with his 30 caliber machine guns in the back, and he manages to shoot down the fighter plane, which is not an easy task to pull off, by the way. So Dusty's feeling real confident in his choice of having John Snowden be his tail gunner. Then the radio lights up saying that there are confirmed Japanese vessels in Kwajalein anchorage and that they are free to bomb them if they have any bombs left. Dusty still has his 500-pound bomb on his fuselage, and he's not about to bring that all the way back to the Enterprise, so he beelines it to Kwajalein anchorage. As he approaches the anchorage, he picks out the biggest ship. It is the Japanese cruiser Katori. Immediately goes into his diving run, dives on the ship, dives. Typically, you're supposed to pull out at 1,500 feet. Dusty wants to make sure this thing fucking hits. He pulls out at 1,000 feet and drops this bomb right on its deck. As he pulls up out of the dive, he's not going to be able to see if that bomb hit or not, but John, facing the other direction in the rear seat, is able to see the entire thing, and he's absolutely certain that they just sunk this cruiser. Later documentation after the war would reveal that the cruiser Katori was not sunk by Dusty with one bomb. However, it was severely damaged and had to go into dry dock for an extended period of time. So at the end of the day, it's still one man with one bomb taking out an enemy ship for an extended period of time. He's out of bombs. They head back to the Enterprise. They land. They all go to the briefing room, debrief on what just happened. And the dive bombers from the USS Enterprise in this run managed to take out 6 planes, 2 buildings, 2 plane hangars, 6 storehouses, 2 tanker ships, 1 supply ship, and 1 cruiser. So now it's time to go get lunch and then do it again. They go, they have lunch. Now they're going out on another mission to attack the island of Taroa.
Oh, shit.
Fuck, I'm good.
Here we go again.
This is the same day, just so we're on the same page, in case this wasn't crazy enough. So they head out to Taroa, and this time Dusty and John are in the same formation as Dick Best. They are literally Dick Best's wingman, like the main character from the movie Midway. Yeah, that guy. Now, this is a smaller island. There's not supposed to be a bunch of anti-aircraft fire, but as they initiate their dives, there is a metric fuck ton of anti-aircraft fire coming off of this tiny island. And to make things worse, there's fighters tailing them from behind again. Don't worry, it gets worse. John gets on the radio and tells Dusty, we've got 3 fighters on our tail about to shoot us down. So Dusty immediately, thinking fast, engages his split flaps, violently slowing down the plane as all 3 fighters zoom right past him because they don't have that capability. He then somehow manages to avoid all the anti-aircraft gunfire, continues his dive, drops his 500-pound bomb and both of his 100-pound wing bombs directly into an aircraft hangar. Pulls up and then proceeds to strafe the entire airstrip with his 50 caliber machine guns while John Snowden's in the backseat with his 30 caliber turret also strafing. They finish their strafing run, at which point they're out of bombs. Time to head back to the Enterprise. On their way back, a fighter gets on their tail. So Dusty, just a normal day's work, does his maneuver, gets the perfect line of sight for John to be able to shoot this guy down. Doesn't hear the machine guns go off, and he's like, oh fuck, is John dead? John! To which John is like, I may or may not have got a little excited back there and used all my ammunition when we were strafing the airstrip. I can't shoot this guy down. Fuck. Hearing that, they get lit up by a burst of Japanese machine gun fire. One of the bullets goes right over Dusty's head. Said if he was 2 inches taller, it would have killed him. Another bullet goes into John's ass, and another bullet goes directly into their fuel tank. And this is an SBD-2, which does not have self-sealing fuel tanks, so they are more than likely about to burst into flames. At which point, Dusty figures, well, if I'm about to die, I might as well do some cool shit. He goes into some type of evasive maneuver, says doesn't know what it's called, never learned it in school, doesn't know what he did, probably couldn't do it again, but he winds up behind the enemy fighter plane and shoots it down. Then somehow, through main character energy and divine intervention, he does not burst into flames and makes it safely back to the Enterprise. John Snowden then immediately gets rushed off to the medics, and as soon as Dusty gets out of the plane, sirens start going off because there's now 5 Japanese twin-engine bombers headed straight for Enterprise. And Dusty is standing on the deck watching as these 5 bombers are coming right at him. They drop all of their bombs, evasive maneuvers, all of them miss, but one of the bombers gets so heavily damaged by enemy AA that it's not going to make it back, and they see the bomber turn as it starts diving at the USS Enterprise, turning itself into a kamikaze. And at this point, like, time slows down. Everybody on the deck of the Enterprise is just looking at this thing like, this is going to take out the Enterprise. This is game over. There's nothing we can do. And one sailor on the deck runs over to the back seat of a Dauntless dive bomber parked on the deck, mans the 30 caliber machine guns, and starts shooting at this bomber as it approaches. Manages to shoot the pilot, forcing the plane to veer off course and just barely miss the USS Enterprise. As it just barely misses the Enterprise, it dumps fuel all over the deck of the Enterprise, which immediately catches fire. And this same sailor jumps out of the back seat, unmanning the guns, grabs a fire extinguisher, and puts out the fire before damage control guys can get there. And then the dude just disappears. Nobody even knew who did it. Halsey yells down from the deck, bring me whoever that just was. And everybody's looking around like, we're all wearing the same clothes. We're all mostly a bunch of white dudes. I don't know who did it. Dusty said watching that in person was the bravest thing he'd ever seen anybody do, and for the next hour, officers are roaming around below deck and above deck, interviewing and interrogating people, trying to figure out who just saved the USS Enterprise. And after like an hour, they finally figure out that it was Bruno Guido, the same tail gunner that went up with Dusty on his first 6 carrier landings. Apparently, he was worried that he was going to get in trouble because he was supposed to be on guard duty, not manning machine guns, saving the entire ship. He ends up in Halsey's office, worried that he's going to get in trouble. Halsey ends up promoting him. February 24th, 1942, the USS Enterprise is now attacking Wake Island, which was previously an American installation that was attacked at the same time as Pearl Harbor. The Marines and the civilian construction workers that were there put up a hell of a fight against the Japanese for multiple days, but eventually would wind up losing the island. And now the Enterprise is here to take revenge. Military intelligence says there's supposed to be a bunch of planes and enemy ships there, so they set off in their Dauntless dive bombers. They go in. Once they get there, they don't see many enemy planes. They don't really see any ships. All they see is the buildings themselves, so they dive. Dusty winds up dropping his 500-pound bomb right into an ammo depot. A humongous explosion ensues. He pulls out of his dive, strafing on his way out. He then circles around looking for any other viable targets, and the only thing he sees is a Japanese patrol boat patrolling the nearby waters. So he goes out, drops both 100-pound bombs on this patrol boat. Both of them miss. Okay, that's it. Game over. Time to go back to the Enterprise, is what a normal person would say. Dusty Cleese then decided that he was going to strafe the patrol boat not once, not twice, not 3 times, but a total of 19 fucking times until he was out of 50 caliber ammunition. According to John Snowden, at some point after multiple strafing runs, the entire crew bailed out, and when they peeled off, it was last seen smoking heavily, doing donuts in the water, completely unmanned. March 4th, 1942, same deal. Now they're attacking Marcus Island, and the USS Enterprise and her pilots are here to put warheads on foreheads. Again, this island's heavily fortified. They take a humongous amount of anti-aircraft fire coming in on their dives, but none of it penetrates Dusty's plot armor, and he manages to try to drop all 3 of his bombs, both of his 100-pound wing bombs and his 500-pound fuselage bomb, onto a massive enemy barracks. Only the 2 100-pound bombs actually drop, and the 500-pound bomb gets stuck underneath his plane. The barracks blows up. Dusty then peels off and has to go out over the ocean before he can go back to the USS Enterprise and perform evasive maneuvers, trying to wiggle this 500-pound armed bomb off of his plane before he can go and land back on the ship. Eventually, he manages to wiggle it free, then makes his way back to the Enterprise and lands safely. From here, the Enterprise heads back to Pearl Harbor to get retooled and refitted. They've lost a lot of pilots. They need to bring in some new guys. Dusty is awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross by Admiral Nimitz, and he is put on a couple weeks of R&R. After that, he comes back to duty. He spends the next month and a half at Pearl Harbor training up the new pilots that are replacing all of his lost comrades.
3 reasons why live flow belongs in your finance stack, especially for teams that manage multiple entities.
Oh, how's everybody doing? Thanks for watching.
All right, Battle of Midway. Here's the deal. Before we get into what Dusty did as himself as one man on that day, I need to give you a brief overview of the entire operation so you kind of have an idea of what's going on. Otherwise, that's all going to be lost because Midway is an enormous deal and you need this overview to be able to understand why. Basically, the Japanese have come to the conclusion that they need to be able to destroy all of America's aircraft carriers. The reason they need to destroy America's aircraft carriers is because, well, Dusty, the USS Enterprise, the Hornet, and the Yorktown have been going around the Pacific engaging all of the Japanese outposts, combined with the fact that Doolittle has launched his raid where American bombers took off from an American aircraft carrier and then bombed mainland Japan, scared the shit out of Japan. Now they've decided they needed to destroy America's aircraft carriers. So the Japanese don't actually give a shit about the island of Midway. They're gonna fake the attack at Midway in order to lure America's aircraft carriers into combat so they can destroy them. Now at this point in time, America only has 3 aircraft carriers in the Pacific, the USS Enterprise, the Hornet, and the Yorktown. So Japan is gonna show up with 4 of their massive aircraft carriers to be able to overpower the American forces. They're going to bring the Soryu, the Hiryu, the Kaga, and the Akagi. Unpopular opinion, it would have been a lot funnier if those last 2 were named the Taste You and the Smell You, but whatever. Now 3v4 is pretty good odds, but they're not quite good enough. So at the same time they launch the attack on Midway, they're also going to launch a diversionary attack on the Aleutian Islands off the coast of Alaska, and they think that this is going to force the American forces to split their carrier fleet. That way, at least one of the carriers is headed up to Alaska, so only 2 American aircraft carriers show up, and they'll be outnumbered 2-1 they'll for sure be able to take out the American carriers then. Now, obviously, this is a surprise attack, so the Americans don't know that Midway is going to be under attack until it actually happens, meaning the carriers are going to take a while to be able to get there. So all 4 of these Japanese aircraft carriers should have plenty of time to launch their planes, destroy the island of Midway, have the planes come back, land, get refueled, rearmed, and then they're going to wait. Once the American carriers show up, they launch their planes to go retake Midway. They're going to take all of the Japanese planes and send them straight to the American carriers that have no planes and are completely unguarded and vulnerable. They destroy both American aircraft carriers. There's only 1 American aircraft carrier left in the entire ocean. Chase that thing down later. Game over. America loses a Pacific War. Japan is victorious. Okay, this plan is solid. It's absolutely brilliant. The only thing that could possibly go wrong with this plan is if all 3 American aircraft carriers were at Midway, they didn't know they were there, and then at the moment the Japanese send all of their planes to attack Midway, all 3 American aircraft carriers send their planes to attack the unguarded Japanese aircraft carriers. That's the only thing that could go wrong, but that's impossible because the Americans don't know that the attack on Midway is happening. Except they do. American intelligence has intercepted transmissions and cracked the Japanese encrypted code. They know the day, the time, and the general area the Japanese fleet is going to be in, and all 3 of the American aircraft carriers are going to be there waiting to attack at the opportune moment. Okay, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, basically the United States Navy and the Japanese Navy are taking all of their chips and going all in on this next hand. Somebody's plan is going to work out, and that team is going to destroy the other Navy's entire carrier fleet and basically win the war at this point. And this is where Dusty comes in. They wake Dusty up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Last night they got briefed. Everybody knows today is the day. America is throwing a Hail Mary. The entire Pacific War is going to get won or lost today. But he's surprisingly not that nervous about it. He's got a cool head. He heads off to breakfast. In the mess hall, they're serving steak and eggs. Pretty bad omen. Anytime the military is giving you steak, it's because they're either about to fuck you or it's about to be your last meal. From here, he goes into the mission briefing. They find out that they are not going to have a fighter escort. The dive bombers are going in by themselves. Some of the dive bombing pilots are a little upset by this, but Dusty, still pretty unfazed in his mind. He's got the best tail gunner in the world and he can handle it. What does start to bother him is when he finds out that they're going to be taking off about 175 miles from the Japanese fleet. That means that by the time they fly 175 miles, go through their attacking run, then fly 40 miles in the wrong direction to intentionally mislead the Japanese as to where the American fleet is, he's not going to have a lot of gas to make it back, and if anything goes wrong, he's probably going to have to bail out over the ocean. And it's not just going to be him, it's going to be everybody that has to bail out because everybody has the same amount of fuel and everybody's going on the same mission, meaning that rescue is going to be slim to none. Basically, he just has to accept the fact that everything could go right and there's still a pretty good chance that he's going to wind up dying as a piece of human beef jerky getting dehydrated in the Pacific sun on top of a life raft in the middle of the ocean. While this is going on, at 4:30 in the morning, all 4 Japanese carriers launch 108 Japanese planes to go attack Midway. Okay, the clock is now ticking. They have to be able to strike these carriers either while those planes are still in the air or while they're on the deck getting refueled and rearmed. The Japanese planes reach Midway by 6 o'clock in the morning, quickly overpowering the 26 Marine fighter pilots that are there defending, killing 17 of them. They also destroy the power plant, oil tanks, and some other buildings, but Midway has been heavily fortified because America knew this attack was coming. So they don't actually manage to destroy the airstrip, and they get 11 of their planes shot down for their troubles. Their attack lasts for about an hour, meaning that by 7 o'clock in the morning, all the Japanese planes are empty, out of fuel, out of ammo, headed back to their aircraft carriers, and 4 minutes prior to that, at 6:54 a.m. on June 4th, 1942, over the loudspeakers of the USS Enterprise, Dusty hears, "Pilots, man your planes." It's fucking go time. All the planes from the USS Enterprise get up in the air. They start doing a holding formation. They are supposed to wait to link up with all the planes from the Yorktown and the Hornet. So they do a hot lap around the task force, and then they do another hot lap, and another hot lap, and another hot lap, and these fucking planes aren't showing up. This mission's gonna be low on fuel already. They spend 40 minutes in this holding formation before they take off. They're for sure gonna have to dive out over the ocean at this point. After waiting for almost an hour, Wade McCluskey, the guy leading all of Enterprise's planes, gets a transmission from the Enterprise, proceed to target anyways. Great, perfect. Mission already going to shit. Now they're extra low on gas, which is gonna be a humongous issue later. On top of that, they've got 1/3 of the planes that they're supposed to have, but they're gonna go attack the Japanese anyways. Why not? On the way there, it proceeds to get worse because the guy in charge, Wade McCluskey, isn't actually a dive bombing pilot. He's actually a fighter pilot that was placed in charge of this mission because of seniority, not necessarily because of ability, even though he is a great pilot. He's just not specialized in being a dive bomber. So when he's flying towards the objective, he's flying at the cruising speed of a fighter plane, which is 190 knots, and a cruising speed of a dive bomber is 160 knots. Doesn't sound like a big deal. They're going to get to the objective faster, sure, but they're burning more fuel at that speed. After flying for over an hour at 190 knots, Dusty and the rest of the planes from the USS Enterprise arrive at the location that the Japanese task force is supposed to be at, and they're not fucking there. Perfect. Wade McCluskey, the guy in charge, figures, well, they're supposed to be here. Maybe they went somewhere. Maybe they couldn't have gone far, so he starts doing a box search. After 30 minutes of doing this box search, burning additional fuel, they come up on this gigantic rainbow. All the pilots are in radio silence, so they're just communicating with hand signals, and everybody's like pointing at this rainbow like, oh, look at how beautiful this rainbow is. And as they get closer to this rainbow and they look through the rainbow, they see a singular Japanese destroyer traveling at full speed, making a beeline towards something. The Enterprise pilots don't know this at the time, but that Japanese destroyer was actually left by the task force with all of the Japanese aircraft carriers to take out an American submarine, the USS Nautilus, that had attacked their formation earlier in the day, and now it's trying to catch up to the task force. McCluskey, hoping that this is the case and that Japanese destroyer is making a beeline towards his carriers, decides to set their course in the same direction as that destroyer, and they come up on the Japanese task force in 3 minutes. So now they've identified all the Japanese carriers. Dusty looks down at his gauges and he is below half a tank of fuel. At this point, Dusty and pretty much everybody else realizes that by the time they catch up to this task force, dive on it, go through the whole combat thing, then fly 40 miles in the wrong direction before looping back around and heading towards the Enterprise, they're probably going to run out of gas and have to ditch out over the ocean. At this point, it would be completely reasonable to say we have identified where the Japanese are, we should head back, refuel, refit, and then go and attack them. But nobody says it because everybody knows that this is their only chance. Every single man in that formation knows that almost beyond a shadow of a doubt that they're going to die at this moment. The only question they have left is, am I going to die in combat trying to hit the enemy? Am I going to successfully hit the enemy, get out of combat, and have to ditch out over the ocean where one of two things is going to happen? Maybe there's a slight chance I get rescued. More likely, I'm going to turn into human beef jerky in the sun, dying on a life raft. Or even worse, the Japanese are going to come and pluck me out of my life raft and torture me to death. Everybody knows it. Nobody says it. Nobody complains. Nobody second guesses the mission. They fucking attack. At 10:23 a.m., McCluskey comes over the radio yelling, all planes attack. And right out of the gate, as they begin their bombing runs, we've got problems. They're supposed to be attacking two of the Japanese aircraft carriers, the Akagi and the Kaga, and Wade McCluskey, again, great pilot, phenomenal guy, but he was thrown into a role that he's not specialized in. So he yelled, all planes attack, everybody attacked, and he didn't specify who's attacking what. They're supposed to split up.
Now to just clean up the mess I made.
Onto the Kaga. Luckily, Dick Best realizes this and veers off towards the Akagi. However, he does it so fast and there's so much confusion, only his two wingmen are able to follow. So now only 1/3 of them are going to attack the Akagi and 2/3 are attacking the Kaga. Whatever, we're in it now. They go into their dives. They're diving.
Oh, to get nice and close.
His two wingmen all drop.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
And all of them miss. Next
we're in Hines Creek, Alberta here. Gonna be hauling grain here in an hour or two.
And at this point in his dive, Dusty sees the gigantic
hit that like button while you're here.
Right on their deck, and it looks an awful lot.
You're here anyways, may as well hit it.
Dusty's watching Earl Gallagher right in front of him. He drops
enjoy
a
though.
500-pound bomb. It goes right through a Japanese Zero fighter plane, through the deck, and explodes below deck. He also drops both of his incendiary bombs that hit all the gas that's on deck because they're actively refueling their planes, causing an enormous fireball. Dusty's up next. He hits 1,500 feet where he's supposed to drop his bombs. He doesn't do it. He's heading right towards this gigantic bullseye, which is a moving target, by the way, at full speed. So he's not trying to hit the bullseye. He's trying to hit where the bullseye is going to be after the bomb makes contact after a couple of seconds. He's diving, finally drops all three of his bombs at 1,000 feet and then pulls up. As they pull up, Joe Snowden's watching from the back seat as the 500-pound bomb hits the bullseye, goes below deck, explodes, and both incendiary 100-pound bombs also make contact, go below deck, explode. They believe hitting a bunch of ammunition because they were reloading all their planes below deck, causing a massive explosion. And they're not even out of the woods yet because now they're flying right above the water as all the Japanese anti-aircraft guns are firing at them. They're not only dodging the anti-aircraft coming at them from behind, they're also dodging the giant columns of water getting thrown up into the sky from all of the missed shots, because if they drive into that, they're dead too. They're bobbing and weaving between all of these gigantic puddles of water. As Dusty gets some distance away from the ships and pulls up, he gets two Japanese Zeros on his tail, but John Snowden manages manages to scare both of them off with his 30 caliber machine guns, most likely because they didn't have any ammunition and they were planes returning from Midway. By 10:30 a.m., just a couple of minutes later, John Snowden and Dusty are at cruising altitude 15 miles away from the battle, heading back to the USS Enterprise. Now that he's finally got a moment to breathe, Dusty looks back and sees that 3 of the 4 Japanese carriers are now engulfed in flames. Apparently, planes from the other carriers showed up and they were successfully able to hit the Soryu, leaving only 1 Japanese carrier left, the Hiryu. And by sheer coincidence, as he's taken this few moments to look back at these 3 burning aircraft carriers, the Kaga, the same one that he had just hit, is so engulfed in flames that those flames finally reach the forward magazine, detonating all the ammunition, and it is engulfed in a secondary humongous explosion that launches the forward elevator into the sky and engulfs the entire ship into a cloud of smoke. Once the smoke clears, the ship is completely gone. And with that, Dusty and John Snowden head off by themselves 40 miles in a random direction before making their way back to the Enterprise. Now, back to reality, Dusty's about to run out of fucking gas. He's making his way back to the Enterprise. He's doing everything he can to conserve as much gas as possible. He doesn't think they're going to make it. Then at 11:30 on his way back, he runs into 24 Japanese planes and 2 Zeros peel off their formation and start headed towards him. And at this point, fucking, it is what it is. He's got to keep heading towards the Enterprise if he wants to make it alive. So these 2 Zeros start closing in on him, and they're closing in on him, and they're closing in on him. John's just going to have to shoot him down. That's the only option, or we're going to die. And then before they get close enough to actually fire on Dusty, they peel off for whatever reason. As they get closer to the Enterprise, he starts seeing more dive bombers. They all split up after they attack, and then they're all reconverging at the same point. So he's starting to see more planes in the sky that are friendly, and he's starting to see a couple of dive bombers that have ran out of gas and their crews had to bail out. He's marking down locations so they can go back and save them later, but he can't stop to do a whole lot because his gas gauge says empty. As all the surviving American dive bombers are approaching the USS Enterprise to make their landings, Wade McCluskey completely redeems himself. Typically speaking, as the leader of the task force, he should get to land first. However, he's been shot and he's concerned about his ability to land on an aircraft carrier right now, and he knows everybody's so low on fuel that if he crashes this plane and bogs down the carrier and nobody else can land, they're all going to have to ditch. So he elects to stay up in the sky and land last, letting all of his men land first. Just like I said, great pilot, great leader, just thrown into a role that wasn't his specialty at the time.
You go and do something like this and totally redeem yourself.
Dusty goes in, makes his landing, gets out of the plane, and the ground crew tells him he had less than 3 gallons of fuel left in his aircraft. And with that, he heads off to lunch because, well, he got up at 3 a.m. and it's been a long-ass day, and the worst part, it's not over yet.
Try not to hit the bag here. Fucking commercials. Still not paying for premium. We should get money in some scotch.
All right, America has successfully sunk 3 of the 4 Japanese carriers that were attacking Midway, and there's only 2 other carriers that the Japanese even have. It is now 3 Japanese carriers versus 3 American carriers. You know what's cooler than 3v3? 3v2. America's gonna go sink that 4th fucking carrier. Why? Because fuck them, that's why. 3:30 p.m., loudspeakers on the Enterprise come on. Pilots, man your planes. Like I said, Wade McCluskey got shot. He's now out. Earl Gallagher is leading this attack. Also, like I said, Earl Gallagher, extremely talented dive bomber. He knows what's up. Hopefully this goes a little bit better. They take off towards the Hiryu. They get eyes on it by 4:55 p.m. and rather than just diving on it right away, they elect to swing around so the sun is at their back, so they are diving out of the sun, blinding the anti-aircraft gunners. As they enter their dives, Dusty's leading the 2nd flight, Earl Gallagher's leading the 1st flight. Earl Gallagher drops his bombs, miss. His 1st wingman drops his bombs, miss. His 2nd wingman drops his bombs, hit. Next up, Dusty, aiming right for the giant fucking bullseye on the deck again, takes it down to 1,000 feet. All 3 bombs hit, pulls up.
Might not have been the best idea.
And behind him, 2 more dive bombers also score direct hits, one of which being Dick Best, making them the only 2 pilots in U.S. naval history to ever hit 2 aircraft carriers in the same day. They pull up, they make their clean getaway, they head back to the Enterprise. They think they might have sunk the Hiryu, but they don't know for sure. Next day, June 5th, 1942, the Hiryu still might be out there burning up, and we need to go make sure that that thing gets destroyed. So Dusty and some other dive bombers from the Enterprise head out to where the Hiryu is supposed to be. They make it out there. Hiryu, nowhere to be seen. The only thing that's there is a Japanese destroyer. They don't know this yet, but that Japanese destroyer was forced to scuttle the Hiryu by firing torpedoes at it because it was so critically damaged in the battle. At this point, they got to drop the bombs before they can land back on the Enterprise anyways, so they might as well try to drop them on this Japanese destroyer. Every single plane goes, dives on this destroyer, they drop bombs. Everybody, including Dusty, misses. They make their way back to the Enterprise. Next day, June 6, 1942, we've sunk all the Japanese carriers that we came here to sink, but guess what? They've got a bunch of other ships. We've got them on the ropes. We're going to go fuck those ships up too. They found another fleet that's got 2 cruisers. Supposedly it's got some battleships and destroyers. We're going to fly out there and drop bombs on them too. So Dusty and John man their plane. They go up with the other dive bombers. They make their way out to this Japanese fleet. They get there. There's no battleships. It's just 2 cruisers, 2 destroyers. That's fine. We're going to put warheads on 4heads anyways. They all start diving on Japanese cruiser Makima, and 4 of the pilots in front of Dusty all score direct hits, and Dusty manages to score the 5th and final hit, sinking the cruiser Makima, officially making him the only man at the Battle of Midway to score 3 hits on 3 separate enemy ships. For this, he is awarded the Navy Cross, which is second only to the Medal of Honor. 5 days later, the USS Enterprise makes port at Pearl Harbor, and Dusty Cleese's flying days, at least in combat, are over. Not because he did a bad job, not because he's in trouble, actually the opposite. His flying days are over because he did such a good job. America at this point in time and to this day believes in the theory of we're not going to keep our best guys in the field so they can rack up ridiculous kill counts. Once they get so good, we're going to pull them back and have them be teachers to teach the next generation so that hopefully they can get just as good as them without having to risk their lives in so much combat. And Dusty is arguably one of, if not the most experienced dive bombers in the world at this point in time, so he gets pulled and goes off to teach everybody else how to do it. But not before he puts his request in for 30 days of leave, then takes Jean to Las Vegas and gets married as soon as possible. Apparently, religious differences between different sects of Christianity seem like a minor inconvenience after you've gotten a staring match with death for 3 days straight.
Don't hit this.
And they would prove to be just that because they got to live happily ever after, but during the happily ever after, a lot of dumb shit happened. All right, so now Dusty's teaching all the new guys how to be a dive bomber. One of the first things that happens is his chain of command tells him, hey, here's this house you're living in. You don't have a phone. We need you to have a phone so we can call you in case there's an emergency, in case we see, like, you know, a Japanese sub off the coast or something. We're going to need you to take your students out and go bomb that motherfucker. So you need a phone line so we can get a hold of you. So Dusty goes to the phone company. He's like, I need you guys to give me a phone line. And they're like, yeah, we'll get to it eventually. Weeks go by. They don't get around to it. He goes back in person and is like, hey, I need a phone line. My chain of command ordered me to get a phone. And they're like, well, what do you need a phone line for? And he's like, I'm the dive bombing instructor, and if there's an enemy submarine spotted off the coast, I'm the guy that's supposed to go put a fucking bomb on it. And then he's like, actually, you know what? Don't give me a phone line because I would rather stay at home sleeping in my bed than go bomb enemies. You know, just, we're good. We're good. I'll tell the chain of command you said no, it's fine. And the phone company's like, fine, we'll get you a phone line. So that happened right out of the gate. Then once he starts teaching, he starts having issues. He takes the job very seriously. He wants to give these kids every edge that he can because he doesn't want them to go off and die in combat. And there's just some of these kids that are coming through that are not cut out to be dive bombers. They're not good enough. He wants to flunk them out, send them to go do something else. They're going to get themselves or somebody else killed. And he just keeps getting constant pushback from the bureaucracy because they need more dive bombers, figure out how to make him a good dive bomber. And he's constantly just having that battle. And some of these kids are just fucking dumb. On one occasion, he gets called while he's having dinner with Jean at home, and they're like, you need to come in right now. We just had a training accident. So he runs, goes back onto base, gets into work, and it's like, what's going on? What's the deal? One of the pilots was up on a training exercise, and the pilot, when he went up, he had a tail gunner, and when he landed, he didn't have a tail gunner. So Dusty's interviewing the pilot like, what happened? He's like, I have no idea. The dude just wasn't there when we landed. And he's like, were you talking to him during the flight? And he's like, yeah, I was checking in on him every couple of minutes. And he's like, and he was responding. He's like, well, yeah, every time except for the last time he didn't respond to me. And then I called out and he fucking didn't respond, and then I landed and he wasn't there. So they go out, they inspect the plane, and there's no like damage to the harness, the seatbelt isn't cut, and there's a footprint on the tail wing. So like this guy jumped out or fell out and kicked the plane on the way down. While they're trying to figure out what the fuck is going on, they get a phone call from some random farmer a couple miles down the road. The farmer gets on the phone and is like, yeah, one of your pilots just landed in my field. Do you want me to bring him to you, or do you want to come get him, or what's the deal? And Dusty's like, what? Hold on. What's the name of the tail gunner? Oh, it's so-and-so. His last name's Bale. And he's like, what's this guy's name? And he's like, oh, it's, Lieutenant Bale. Okay, thank God. This guy at least deployed his parachute. He's alive. He's like, just keep him at your farm. What's your address? We'll come pick him up. So Dusty hops in his car, drives out to this guy's farm. They're sitting in this guy's farmhouse at the table, and he's like, okay, what the fuck happened? And the tail gunner tells Dusty, I don't know, the pilot told me that we were going to crash and told me to jump out. And at this, Dusty's like, well, what the fuck? The pilot didn't mention anything about potentially crashing and telling you to jump out of the fucking plane. What is going on? He goes, I need you to tell me exactly what happened. Tell me exactly what got said. He goes, we were approaching the airfield, and so-and-so, the pilot, came over the radio and yelled, bail. And Dusty looks at this kid and goes, that's your last name. Dumb, absolutely stupid. This is what he was putting up with, trying to teach people how to be dive bombers. So he takes the job very seriously, but he doesn't really enjoy it because they don't let him flunk the people out that need to be flunked out. After World War II, he was no longer needed as a dive bombing instructor, but he continued to serve in the United States Navy for a total of 24 years. He spent the rest of the most of his career helping the Navy procure new planes, new weapons, new catapults for aircraft carriers, stuff like that. And then there was that brief stint where he was in charge of escorting all the German scientists for Project Paperclip, but we're not going to get into that. After he retired from the military, he could finally hang up his unchosen nickname of Dusty and finally return to his chosen name of Jack Cleese, and then he went to work for Lockheed, and then he eventually retired in San Antonio, Texas. And him and Jean got to live happily ever after. She passed away at 95 years old, and he passed away at 100. So that is the incredible story of Dusty Cleese, the only guy to score 3 direct hits during the Battle of Midway, and arguably the greatest dive bomber in American history, which still raises the question, why was he left out of the movie Midway? And the answer is pretty straightforward. He just didn't want any credit for it. When he first came home, they tried to, play him up as a hero, and he didn't like it. He didn't even tell his dad that he took part in the Battle of Midway, let alone had arguably one of the singular most pivotal roles. He didn't self-promote, he didn't want the glory, he didn't want the attention. In his opinion of himself, he truly believed that he was just a normal dude that was called into the line of duty, and he went and did his job. And he had lost so many of his friends at the Battle of Midway, and he regarded them as just as good as him, and he truly felt that the only reason he was still there was just dumb luck, and he didn't think that he should get a bunch of credit for that. So he never talked about it. In fact, the only reason we have all these personal details of his account of Midway is because at the age of 99 years old, he finally wrote a book. And in that book, he says the only reason he was writing the book was because he was the last surviving dive bomber from Midway, and he felt that it was his duty to help keep the story alive. Not for him, but for everybody else. And to highlight how he truly felt that way, he literally titled the book, Never Call Me a Hero. And that is a story of Norman Jack Dusty Cleese, in my opinion, the greatest dive bomber in American history. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at The Fat Electrician. Maybe drink some Echelon. All that's available over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang, out.
Fuck, he tells
Seriously, if you got
stories.
time, go back and rewatch the movie Midway. It's literally this guy's entire career. He's just not in the movie, but he's in every battle scene. They follow his career the entire time. They just never give him a role.
When Old Me had to onboard a new hire, she would spend hours creating documentation, only to end up explaining the same things over and over again anyways. But New Me is saving time.
That's a little easier than fucking shoveling, eh? Oh, yeah. Fuck's that ice thick.
I was just debating if a guy should fucking knock that first. Or the guy might as well see what he can get out of it, I guess.
See if I can push through it.
Yeah,
because fucking, like, I think, like, the way it is there's not going to be a ton of chunks, like, no worse than somewhere where you can't fucking pick the shit out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I'll just try it and see if it does any good.
It looks nice on the end.
Yeah, it's good. The bag.
But like, you know, when you look at the grain, it's like, hey, good, nice.
Yeah, there's nothing built up on the end.
Yeah, but we should put the extractor on the bag, then unhook so I can plow the side there, freaking.
Yeah, you bet.
And Leighton said sometime around 4, I guess.
Oh, not till 4.
Yeah, something got fucked up, or well, he said the people driving like fucking little babies. Like, she was icy at like 11 o'clock last night, man. I went through the David Thompson before the plow trucks got there. And I had weight on, man. Like, I couldn't even get it over 50. I'm just sliding down the hill at like 40. I'm like, okay, this is awesome. Like, a good thing. Like, if you're doing 100, you might have needed the guardrails like that NASCAR driver guy, you know, just fucking rack around her, because fuck, she was bad. And it looked like a skating rink. It was kind of awesome. If it wasn't such a sketchy place, sit in the bottom and freaking burn donuts. Yeah. Yeah. But then right as I did that, like once I got to the top, there was the truck coming from Hines Creek. So yeah, when I went home at like 1, the roads were pretty freaking good. So it fucking rained yesterday. Yeah, we went over to Kenny's for a couple beers there.
Fucking Colbert split all the rest of his wood, and then started in on a big shop, finished fixing my other trucks at single cab. Cleaned this fucking shop out there and fucking drank 30 beers. Holy fuck. I better go.
Yeah, fuck, if I don't go now, I'm staying. And I'm going to burn up a bunch of this wood that we cut up tonight, because I ain't going to be cold out in the shop either.
Yeah, it was all the mushy shit that was left, big old blocks like this.
Yeah, Leighton said even your big ass chainsaw, you're like, fuck, having some trouble. Like, damn. But when you throw,
I got my razors right out too, so it's like she bogs. If you actually go and buy a brand new chain and put it on, it fucking screams.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We
were over at Chalmers the other day and went to cut a piece of wood. Me and Stumpy were just laughing. Like, fuck, it was like 10 minutes. Fucking. Oh yeah. Then we sharpened it and the whole thing. Like, there you go. Like, never been sharpened, and you know he buried it in the dirt about 400 times. Yeah, when a chainsaw blade's dull, it's
so fucking shitty. Yeah.
And it doesn't take that long to pull a fucking file out. And
if you stay on top of it,
well, it takes you what, 15 minutes?
We got a little culvert, or like a little vice there, a little fucking chainsaw vice. Fuck, every time I'm there, I just fucking.
Yeah.
Just a couple on every one, just to make.
But you cut all the time, so it matters. When you're cutting a tree down in the ditch, it's nice if it doesn't take you freaking half an hour. Okay, we got a little cold though. That's good.
Yeah, it's warm and it's cold and warm.
This shit's not breaking up yet. I thought this ice was gonna start to break up, but it'd be nice if the sun actually stayed away, because then it won't melt no more. The log haul, I've still been seeing trucks going by.
That should be enough room for him.
Oh yeah, around that you can go way out wide and get in on this side. I'll clean this up here so that yeah.
Well, if you want to plunk that into position.
Yeah, we'll get it hooked right on, and then
you're good to
yeah, and then I can go, because otherwise I can't get that snow out of there, and that shit's gonna be tough to push wheels through. Turning into fucking snowmen out there.
Yeah.
I always wanted to go try and make a giant snowman. Fuck, that'd be fun.
Get fucking rolling there with the
it'd be so much better with an excavator though, because you know, like you could spin it in circles and then get the second one, lift it up, set it on top. Like, I know I could do it if someone wanted to just let me.
It was along the highway and they were building giant ones or whatever. It was pretty sweet.
I seen a guy doing it with a bobcat, but that just looked painful, man. Like, it's, you know, like you have to like lift as you roll it, you know, so, and then it like rolls back into the machine, damn near knocks the machine over. It's like, fuck. Fucking snowball's bigger than the machine is, fuck's sakes. That'd be a good video though, making a snowman. Fuck. Get 1 million views. Yeah, let's hook onto this thing, get her done, and then we can sit around. Oh, how's everybody doing? Now we're gonna hook on to the extractor. That's gonna be behind me, so you can watch that. Well, we did do a ton extra here, that's for sure. Okay, pit stop on the clock. Oh. Get the wiggle wagon into place. This thing has such a short hitch, a terror to back up. Man, he's just spinning on the ice. Go uphill, it's not working. Kick that. Oh, jeez. Nice. A little bit more.
Come back a bit.
How's it going, everybody? Same to you, Melissa. Hope your day's going good. We're in Hines Creek and gonna load some grain here in a little while. Just hooking up the extractor now. That should be good. Starting to get tight on the bottom, so. Yep. Well, if like another 10 minutes, I'll be good. Fuck, everything works so nice when it's warm, eh? Oh man, just falls out of there for you. Okay. Back to work. And there's the extractor, all hooked up on the bag. Now I can actually get in here and snuff a lot of shit. Oh, that's some junk. Freaking laying on the ground there. Let's see.
You ever wonder what A&W stands for?
Thanks for watching, everybody. Looks like the live's coming to an end.
No way. Way better burger?
He hasn't really been assigned to what
Good
kind of
times.
pilot he's going to be, and he really doesn't have a
Thanks
say.
for watching.
It's that day every